One artist made me question absolutely everything, and the next one made me believe in it all over again. And what is this episode? This is the story about them both. Well, hello, darling, and welcome to the Just Jax podcast. Hi, I'm Jax, and I help you find the can in your cat. When we challenge our cats, miracles happen, because when I challenged mine of I can't draw, I can't paint, and I can't color, imagine my surprise when I discovered what I can do is create a 21-foot garden mural that was recently featured not once but twice on the front page of our local newspaper. Next up, I challenge the I'm no author, no artist, and no cursive writing specialist, but what I can do is self-publish 3 books for my kick-ass cursive writing curriculum, Crack the Cursive Code. I'm a jack of all trades, but what I master at is helping ordinary people like me to do extraordinary things through laughter, tears, life-changing stories, because metaphors are my jam. Together we can find the can in your can'ts, the do's in your don'ts, and the wills in your won'ts. I'm so excited for you. Let's go. Some collaborators walk into your story like they've been written in it, and others, well, you have to fire. And this is part where I let go of the first guy, hired the one who felt right, and watched a fox with charm and swagger change everything. It's also the first time I stood up for my creative vision, and the moment someone else said yes loud enough to make me believe in it too. Inside this episode, we're going to talk about the Fiverr ghostwriter who built the bones, the artist who wrestled with the chicken's pompadour until it popped, and the exact phrase that won her over: I'm building a workbook for kids because workbooks are boring as fuck. More than a design story, this is a story about partnership, trust, and what happens when you hand over your can and get a clear, creative can. I really enjoy this interview style of format for this story. There's a lot to this story, and it keeps me very organized, and also it's easier for you to follow along because I can be quite the pinball machine when it comes to telling a story, and I'm just very thankful. So let's start with question number 1. Let's rewind to the early stages. What were you looking for when you started outsourcing parts of this project? Well, first of all, it all started with a TikTok. I saw this about how easy it is to make money self-publishing on Amazon through their KDP publishing portion of their business, and all it was a PDF. And if I had $1 for every PDF I've created, oh my god, my life would be very different. So that part of my I can do portion of my repertoire. I have the ability to create documents very easily of very different all shapes and sizes. So when I saw that you could self-publish a book, that was bing, I can do that. And then I realized that the scope of the book I wanted was way too big and outside of my own scope. So when when I hired the ghostwriter to create the story, they helped a lot of it. They created the character names. They also created the adventure story of the hot air balloon, and all of that was their creation. I just gave them that I wanted it to be an adventure story and that it had to incorporate 5 characters and it had to have a moral to the story. Wow, that was tough to say. A moral to the story. Maybe I have to get a moral to the story. Gotta love that. And so when they came back, the the first edition was just mind blowing, and then it took quite a bit of finessing, but it was fantastic. Once they figured out that they had to stay within the guidelines of the pangram sentence, it came to life. There were a couple small little things that we had to tweak here and there, but it I say small little things, but I went back to my conversations with them, and it took over weeks going back and forth of every single line had to represent what I wanted to represent. And it's funny because when you say that you're going to get a ghost writer to write it, but what they do is they give you the ingredients and like a recipe. And it's a very basic recipe. And then all of a sudden, like, it's just a simple vanilla cake. But what happens if you want to make a German chocolate cake? And this is what this was. This was like one of the most difficult cakes, because I was like, well, that's great. You did that, but now you need to tweak all of it. And every single portion of it was touched by my hand. Every word was had to ring true. And so it's funny when people say, did you write the story? No, but my blood, sweat, and tears are all over that thing. I'm everywhere. And I What I've been told by a friend of mine who worked with me, and she said whenever I laugh like that, she can tell that there's a whole bunch more to the story. That all the therapy and courses I've done come out of my body now as laughter, because they say laughter is the best medicine. And that is, whenever you hear me laugh like that, there is a great amount of emotional distress that goes along with the laughter. Another great part that a ghostwriter gave me, and it was an extra service that I had to pay for, was that they offered a service where they would give the illustrator directions on what the artwork should look like, so that when you looked at, like, I always wondered how in a children's book or a graphic novel on how to depict it visually to match what it says in the book, because that's what a lot of the complaints are in regards to movies and such, is that the scenes that they set or etc, or the people that they cast are too different than what's in the book. And this gave me such a breath of fresh air, because there was no way I could make the leap from the book to the artist. And at this time there was no such thing as AI. That's what I think we're going to start saying things like before AI. It's almost like before the smartphone, and now it's going to be before AI. But before AI, I had no idea how to bring this to life. And when I read the illustrative notes, it never helped that much either, which was a true testimony of how much artistic skill I have in regards to drawing and zip. But I figured that if there was an illustrator, that someone had to have the kind of brain that could translate those instructions. And so it really felt at times like building IKEA furniture. All these pieces were there that I had, but they all had to come together. And it was amazing when they would get it just right and it would just sync. But I remember the anxiety. Anytime something got sent to me, it would take me almost a day sometimes just to have the courage to open the bloody file, because I was so scared that it was going to be horrible, or that they were going to come back at me and tell me that, what the hell am I doing? You're a novice. You don't know what you're doing. Get out of it. Like, all this negative press and the anxiety. I just had an email come back to me that I should have been super excited about. And it took me again almost 48 hours to even get the courage to open up the email. This has been a torturous experience. There's that therapy laugh again. All right. What happened with that first artist? Oh, yeah, let's go to that. And what made you finally say enough? Oh, with the first artist, I was on a low budget and I wanted to save as much money as I could. And on these online work sources, they do have places from all over the world. And there are some places that charge less for their services because of their their economy. And I asked for one of these lower priced options. And with that sometimes becomes a language barrier. And because of my lovely Jack speak, where I can be convoluted at times, it was a very difficult thing for him to either understand or create. And he was more enthralled with the color aspect of it. Now looking back at it, he was more a background color artist than a illustrator who could change scenes regarding to instead of doing, he would, oh, I'm stumbling over my words here. It was just a horrible experience. And finally, he refunded my money, which was great. But then he said that I was the worst experience for him on Fiverr ever. And I'm like, look, buddy, you're lucky this is all you got. I was so, you would have been proud, like super proud. I was, I really reined in my bitch, man. I wanted to lose my mind on him. But I realized that that would accomplish nothing, and our conversations are all on text and readable. And I learned very quickly in my life that they need to be able to tell the difference between you and the other person. And if they saw that they were being difficult and having difficult time understanding, and you're being as clear as possible, then if any moderator went over and looked at it, they could see that I was being as clear and polite and professional as possible, which I was. So be called his worst experience on Fiverr was fascinating. I'm sorry that we never resonated very well, but his artwork was just too juvenile, and I needed this to be something that would entertain anywhere from the age up until age about 12 in my mind. And this was like 5, 6 year olds, and it just never flew. It it and it was the second time that I had to deal with an artist, and this time I I wanted to actually give feedback, and it blew up in my face. So I'm like, okay, with the mural, I had the artist where I never wanted to speak and couldn't find my voice. Here, then the next artist I do, I find my voice, and I get called the worst experience on that website. And I thought, wow, maybe I should put that on my resume. that's quite an that's quite an accomplishment. Oh, it makes me wonder what I would have got if I would have actually been my worst. Anyway, but firing him and standing up for myself really, really changed things, because when I went to the different site and I just was myself on the ad and I said, listen, I am trying to save moms from having the same workbook trauma that I had, because workbooks are boring as fuck. And I put a little asterisk for the U, so it was politically correct on text and copy. And she answered me back as, you had me at workbooks are boring as fuck. And she was a graphic artist, and she had done more black and white artwork, but I had seen her other colored work, and that actually is what sold me on her. If it wasn't for that, I would have never found her. And perfect segue to number 3, and then came the fox. Tell us what sealed the deal. All right, so she sent me all 5 characters. Fox was just dead bang on. He actually made me have an emotional reaction to him, like, well, hello there. And it was just that he became mine. It was very hard to explain how he actually resonated with me, but I looked at the other ones and my stomach just fell, because Chicken and Wizard were horrible. They had none of the personality that I wanted them to have. Croc was, I'd say, about 60% there, and Bones was maybe 30, 40% there. And so I kept Fox 100%, and then she came back with the other renditions. Second time she came back, Croc was perfect. He was awesome. And then Bones, she changed to a pug, and I'm like, what the I'm like, my subconscious mind is playing with me, because my mother loves Chinese pugs. It's pug everything for her. And I understand that they are very cute. But if you have been around someone that absolutely loves something, loves it, and you love something else, it can be very interesting. And I'm like, wow, like, what was that all about? And I'm like, no, no pugs. Nope, nope, nope. I'm more of a basset hound bulldog person. So I'm either you go bulldog or you go hound. But Fox is what did it for me. When she got him right off the bat, then I knew that she was the artist for me. And then it almost like she just breathed it into life. And she told me right off the bat what really, really I forgot to mention is that she interviewed me. We had an hour and a half phone conversation, video call. She says, I am a very passionate artist and I refuse to waste my time on people that are only in it for money. And you know what? My heart fell because I had zero interest in cursive. I believed that when I made this resource that it was going to just fly off the shelves because what woman in their right mind teaching cursive wouldn't want to have it more fun for their kids? That was my buy-in to doing this whole thing. That's what hooked me on this. And then when she sat there and she goes, I need to know why you're doing cursive. And my stomach fell, and I felt like she called me out. I felt like such a phony, like, because I was only in it for the money. I was never a cursive enthusiast. I was never a curriculum creator. I was never an author. I was never a mom that picked out curriculum or anything like that. I just saw a really great opportunity. And then I went into the merits of cursive and that I must have did something. She must have saw my heart because I thought she saw right through me. And that's one of the first imposter syndromes that I dealt with because everyone believed that I was supposed to be passionate about cursive. And I just saw a really great tool. Like, I just figured I just saw something that was broken and I wanted to fix it. But I, I already had the tool and I knew how to use the tool. But, oh, just, it was a, it is something that I had carry with me still to some degree because I just really want to help people. That's my mission in life, and I found a tool to help people. But to sell it to help people, that's where it gets difficult for me. But when she believed in me and when she produced the fox, then I knew that this was going to be something. All right, number 5. You mentioned the chicken's hair becoming a really big deal, a weirdly big deal, and why was that moment so important? When when we got Fox and Croc and Bones, when we got them cemented, I I wanted chicken to be something special. I had created a chicken with a different artist for a completely different project, and he was so cute. He had glasses and he had a big pompadour on the top of his head. And the way that that artist depicted him, he was kind of like a cross between the movie Chicken Little and a rooster type of thing because it had that lovely. I'm escaping me what the name of that thing on the top of their head is. And I wanted that to be accentuated because I wanted him to look kind of cool. And so she first made him look more like it's hard to explain. It was torturous. I sent her so many inspo pics. I think I sent her maybe 5 different inspo pics. And then she had him in more of a wizard's robe instead of an apprentice robe. Because if the wizard is the wizard and he's the owl, then the chicken I needed to be able to differentiate between the two. And then we had to make some adjustments to his robe because I wanted him to make sure that it accentuated the fact that he was a chicken and that he had a belly. And then the chicken was born. The same had to go with the wizard. I sent her a picture of a wizard. There was this really cool pencil drawing that I saw online that I sent to her that had the collar up high, and I wanted him to have a monocle. I wanted my birds to have glasses. I don't know why. I just thought they looked kind of cool with glasses on. So you'll see the chicken has regular glasses and the owl has a monocle. And then they were born, and it when that started to happen and I saw the first artwork of where we were thinking and going, the the amount of stress that when she sent me an artwork to look at it, my stomach would just go through absolute knots. I would feel so sick to my stomach anytime I saw a text from her because it's like, am I going to hate it? Is it going to look stupid? Am I making a mistake? Why did I do this? You're no expert. What is wrong with you? And that would beat me up. I battled through that every single time I had an edit or I asked for someone to do something because it was very hard for me to find my voice. All right. So you've said Fox helps shape more than one book. How far did that collaboration ripple? Oh, one thing I learned, and it was a very hard lesson to learn, is that I know now to create the book from the storybook out. And how to explain is that when I created the book, the first book, everything was on the right hand side. And then one time at another homeschool convention, a mom came up to me and said, that's really great, but my child is left handed and she can't really use the book. I went, well, why can't I'm the mastermind behind this. Why I'll do a simple thing, but I'll put all the writing pages on the left hand side of the book. That way they can hold the spine and the back of the book with their right hand, and they get the same freedom of movement like we do. They're no longer bound by the spine or the cumbersome dealing with the book. And the left-handed book was born, and I had a woman come up to my booth when I was doing events everywhere, and she held the book and she sat there and she did everything in her power to stop the tears from falling down her face. She goes, I just feel so validated right now. And I'm like, and it just, that is why I created these things. It's for people. Ooh, I didn't expect to get emotional too. It's for people to have solutions to their frustrating problems when it comes to teaching. So with the artwork, she had to do both sides. One of the things I failed to realize was that the artwork was only done originally to the direction of the right. And then she had to redo the artwork completely when she flipped it to the direction of the left. I thought it'd be something very simple to do, but it proved to be a lot more difficult. So that was a complete redraw. And then when I realized that my storybook could easily create a cursive writing storybook. So all of the text from the original activity book was then put on its own separate page. And when she did the artwork, she drew around the text. So all of the artwork had to be redone, and especially the one with the wizard revealing the scroll at the very end, because there was so much text on there, basically you only got to see the wizard. So we had to completely reconstruct that entire page to reflect something that would look really cool with just the wizard by himself without destroying the integrity of the page. Oh, and that was fantastic. Oh, yes. One of the greatest things of this collaboration was is that she never complained once about redoing something, and I could throw her the strangest ideas, and she was a chronic overthinker as well. And perfectionist. And so I would say, am I overthinking it? Like, really, in the grand scheme of things, how important is this? But there were two other rewrites that I had to do specifically because of that. And one was the letter B. The only negative review I've had on Amazon was from a a buyer that said that the letter B was incorrect, that the B that I used has a loop at the very last stroke when it uses a loop to do a connector, where the traditional cursive writing uses a tick motion to end the B at the very top to connect to the next letter. She said that because of the loop, it made it look like when you do a B and an E together, that it had two E's together and that it was too confusing. And I thought, well, oh, shut the fuck up. Like, how important is that? I thought, whatever. I ignored it. And then a year later, I went to a women's conference in California. And one of the women that stood up, she goes, I am a homeschool curriculum educator. Uh, you go to her and she will help create programs for your kids for homeschooling. And if anyone has any questions, please come talk to me. And I'm like, oh my God, is this woman specifically for me? So I send her my books. And of course, I had that feeling I'm like scared to talk to her. And she comes on, she goes, the only comment, you want to know what her comment was? Your B is wrong. She didn't say hi. She didn't say, what a fantastic thing, or you're creative, or any stroke. It was like, bang, no lube, nothing. Your B is wrong. I'm like, what? And she goes, yeah, it has a loop instead of a tick. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sakes. I'm like, are you? So I'm like, all right then. Okay. So then I had to do an additional rewrite to include both Bs. I thought maybe one was traditional and one was script, because the font that I used came from a computer, and so I guess maybe it was far from legit. Again, I am no cursive writing specialist. I have trouble even remembering what the names of the types of cursive writing are. Another area where it just continues to show me that I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I had my artist redo the beats so that they included both the tick and the loop. She also had to make a complete practice page with the tick, and the tick had to be hand drawn because we never had it. Because it's hand drawn. The irony. Oh, I just got that. Oh my God. Okay. And so she had to hand draw the bee. And then the writing book had to be updated, and the storybook had to be updated to include the bees. One of the key components of the storybook that really, really thrilled my soul was I put a color coded printed legend at the back for easy translation. For I figured that as time went on and as society is becoming the way it is regarding cursive, that we could actually lose the ability to read it. And I thought we might need a translated version of it in text so that people could actually read the book. So I pictured in my mind that a child could flip back and forth because S and T are bright red, and if they go to the S and T section at the back, it's also the same color as the page. And my heart was just overfilled with joy one day at the booth when a young girl came up and she picked up my storybook, and she started reading, and she got stuck, and she flipped to the back, and then all of a sudden she did exactly what in my mind's eye I dreamed of, and I just sat there and went, oh, this is my moment. I want to capture this moment forever. For it was a validation that I had an idea of what I was doing and what I could do to help someone. So I love that. The realization that we could lose the ability to read cursive bothered me, because one weekend when I was doing my booth, I decided to take a photograph of every single person that either wore cursive writing or had it tattooed on their body, and I have probably close to 200 pictures. There's Coca-Cola, there's sports, there was vacation locations that had cursive. There is cursive everywhere. And if you look at any of the marketing, anytime you want to display something that evokes emotion from a human being, most of the time they write it in cursive. Fun side note. Serial killer messages, if you see them in blood on the wall or whatever, they're never in cursive. I know. I have no idea why that struck me funny, but we have a very serious crisis on our hands, because just recently my hubby and I were watching TV, and the Chick-fil-A marketing is written in cursive. There was a university that lost a whole bunch of enrollment because their marketing is in cursive, and the newer generations that would be going to the university can't read it. And so there are it's absolutely necessary. It the idea that quite a few people that came to our booth were so excited that it was going to be a secret language. But do you understand the impact that that would have on like brands like Coca-Cola that is written in cursive, and how many things in our life, if you think about now, if you go and just take a snapshot and take it and put it on my Instagram of Crack the Cursive Code of how many things in cursive you see, you will see that it is still a very living, breathing part of our culture. Sure, this is a very general version of cursive that I have in my book, but it serves the purpose to make sure that we never lose this part of us that makes us human. Cursive is something that keeps us human. That AI can only read 85% of it, so it really still can be a secret language, I suppose. But it's funny how I can speak with passion about it now, but I was no different than the average person. I had no idea that it was important. I knew that we were forced to do it because that was our only form of communication and record keeping. But when the typewriter and internet came in, gone was the cumbersome task of using it for that part. But we definitely threw the baby out with the bathwater on this one, because now our kids are suffering with their ability to focus, and cursive writing helped all of us focus whether we liked it or not. It was necessary and it helped us all. Last question. You said one review caused a complete you said one review caused a complete redraw or rewrite, and the other one changed the complete trajectory of this program. All right. So the first one was the negative one about the B and how I had to have a complete new section put in, one for the I called it traditional and one for script, because I figured the one with the loop would be considered what cursive writing is called script writing when you're talking about it with a font. I forgot to mention that I have an Australian friend of mine, and she also got all up in arms and passionate about it. She goes, "Your B is wrong." I'm like, "What do you mean my B is wrong? I fixed it." She goes, "No, what's with this tick business? It's always been a loop." And I'm like, "Oh my God, is it a loop in Australia then?" I'm like, "Now I have both." And maybe I should have put international instead of contemporary or script. Anyway, the review that changed the trajectory of this entire curriculum was made from Kathy Duffy. And if you're a homeschool enthusiast, she is one of the queens of homeschool curriculum. I found out about her for I interviewed a girlfriend of mine on her children and what the use of cursive was, because her children have dysgraphia, and I had no idea that dysgraphia existed before I created this book. So the difference between dysgraphia and dyslexia is that dyslexia primarily affects reading, decoding, and spelling, while dysgraphia primarily impacts writing, including handwriting and written expression. And this to me is the biggest distinction in cursive that we really take for granted and misunderstand. There are two different parts to cursive. There's the part where the brain recognizes the letter in the reading portion, and then there's the transposing of the reading into the body to do the writing portion. And there is a great disservice done to our kids where you just think, well, this is just go ahead and just do that. There is a distinct possibility that both parts of their brain can have difficulty translating what to do in the reading and the writing. But the focus that takes with cursive is the cure for both of these. Back to Kathy Duffy and the review. I was totally petrified to send my book to her, but I decided that I'm going to do what it makes me feel uncomfortable if I wanted to be a successful business owner. And I asking if she would like to know about my book. And she came back with that she would love to see the book, but I needed to understand that she very rarely reviewed books that were produced on the KDP publishing of Amazon, because basically there's very little um, scrutiny given to that compared to other publishing houses, including Barnes and Noble. And she said that you would at least have to get into another publishing house if you wanted to be taken seriously. And my stomach just dropped again. I'm like, what? I had no idea. In the beginning, when it came to the book, and my artist did all of the interior adjustments. So for every redraw slash rewrite, and I used rewrite in the beginning of this recording, and I realized that that made it sound like I was rewriting the story. but she had to redraw everything. She was the one that was in charge of doing all of the document formatting. We finally figured out how to get Amazon to work, and Barnes and Noble is a completely other beast, and it's well known that their standards are, would it be higher, or they have, it's more difficult to publish through there. And I had all this artwork that I had to deal with, etc. Well, finally we were able to get it so that it worked with Barnes and Noble, and it's called Ingram Spark. That's where you go if you want to publish with Barnes and Noble, and it's only for their online. If you want to get your product into the store, and this is where everyone could help me, is if you go to Barnes and Noble and ask for Crack the Cursive Code, then they have more of an inkling to want to bring it into the store. But right now, it's only available online. And she gave me quite a glowing review. There were a couple things that she mentioned that I had to fix, and I totally forgot about the capitals, and that it's clearly still in the review, and you're going to hear about it in a minute. And I had no idea that they were missing in the first place. uh, she also made a mention that there weren't enough practice pages. So with that, I took that into consideration. There's in the latest complete reconstruction of the book, I included more practice pages. So on to the review. I'm going to read the review from Kathy Duffy so you can hear what she has to say. And it really empowered me that someone of that respect and that level would find that my cursive curriculum is as kick-ass as I thought it was. All right, here we go. Crack the Cursive Code teaches cursive writing in the context of a cartoon adventure story. This activity book has three elements: the story, writing, and coloring. The course is very creative on many levels, with the story itself making this course much more interesting than many other options. The adventure features the adventure features fox, chicken, and dog, cartoon characters in this ongoing story who decide to play dress up as the characters Eat and Hunt, Lord of the Wings, and Indy Napper Bones, respectively. They open an old scroll that they cannot decipher, and thus begins their amazing adventure. They suddenly find themselves on the deck of a pirate ship that later transforms into a submarine, then onto a hot air balloon. Oh, perfect segue for episode 3. We're going to go into my uh, experience with organized religion and how that experience impacted the creation of this book. In fact, I have family members that won't even touch it. So let me give you a little fun little tidbit for episode 3. Whew, that's going to have a lot of therapy left, let me tell you. All right. Along with the text and story illustrations, each page of the story highlights two letters in cursive, introduced by the Lord of the Wings magic wand, for example, A and B, with arrows indicating the direction and steps to follow in forming the letters. The cursive style taught in this course is fairly standard, although it simplifies things a bit by dropping joins after some of the uppercase letters such as B, F, and O. See that those joins were the stroke on the bottom that connects the letters from one to the other. That was missing. So clearly I missed it in the uppercase here. Am I going to do a rewrite? uh, probably not. The letters are taught in alphabetical order, and the 3,000 word story employs alliteration based on the letters taught. For instance, a student learns about the letter G. One sentence of the story reads: The underwater boat gracefully glided towards the sun that glistened on the ocean surface. And the letter H follows with sentences such as: The dog hastily hung a hammock and had his head down in hardly any time at all. That's actually pretty hard to say. And I loved it because I actually say the rewrite with the story. I did have them rewrite the story based that it had to have as much alliteration as possible. In the letter J, they really went off the rails in some of the words that they brought I had never heard of, actually. Not that I have a fantastic vocabulary, but I at least have an idea. And so we had to dumb down the J a little because it was really, they went way above and beyond the call of duty. Facing each story page is a lined page for tracing and let two letters emphasized in that piece of the story in both uppercase and lowercase forms, in isolation and within word context. In brackets, writing books for left-handed students place the practice pages on the left, while right-handed books have them on the right, end of bracket. The instructions do not tell students to write the letters on their own, but additional practice pages in the second half of the book provide more tracing practice and space for students to write the letters on their own. I plan on making a video series that goes with this, so that will help them to be able to have instruction on how to write it on their own. In addition, the book uses the sentence, "The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog," to provide practice for writing all lowercase letters. Students will both trace and copy the sentence a few times. Extra line pages scattered throughout the second half of the book can be used for whatever practice you wish. I expect that many children will love to color the black and white story illustrations, and there are additional coloring pages for the story characters. Oh, yes, I forgot to mention that as well, is that I really wanted this to be more of an activity book than a workbook, because work is right at the beginning of the word workbook, and I really wanted to take the work out of teaching cursive. Additional resources. A standalone storybook in cursive with the same story and illustrations used in the activity book has no practice pages. Correct. This is an absolute storybook only. Specifically designed to provide children practice in reading cursive, this full color storybook is available with either a hard or soft cover. And this is where Barnes and Noble came into play, that they provided a hard cover. And that was my dream. I thought, oh, I could get it into the libraries, and that way it's a free resource for everyone, and it's a beautiful story, both inside and out. The moral of the story: Fox is very impatient and yells at his friends, and Bones saves him through his impulsive actions and teaches him that sometimes being slow is the way to go. And it's a beautiful storybook in regards to the artwork too. She did a fantastic job on how brilliant and vibrant everything is. This storybook also has a printed manuscript version minus illustrations at the back of the book for reference. I had no way to how to say this. I'm glad that she put it that way, because I thought it was like there's a printed manuscript at the back for translation help, but this is really good the way it is. It also says children might enjoy the audio version of the storybook, professionally recorded with character voices, music, and sound effects. Ah, yes. The audiobook. You got a little taste of it in the first part of this four-part series. My son actually thought I should do the voices, but I had a very difficult time finding my voice then. At that time, the thought of my recording my voice for something like that and doing accents and such was way above my way above my scope. That was a story and a half too, because of the fiasco I had with the first artist on Fiverr. I decided to go back to Fiverr and see if I can find an audiobook, a gentleman that would record it, and it was quite interesting because I saw this gentleman, I heard his voice, something told me that he would be the one for me, and I go and hire him, and I find out that he's in Thailand. I'm like, "What the fuck? No." He happens to be an American living in Thailand, and his English is excellent, and hats off to Andrew Helbig. He did such a fantastic job. He put so much time and effort into it. His first rendition of it, the voices were, I'd say, 60% of what I wanted them to do. I wanted Chicken to sound neurotic. I wanted Bones to sound cool and laid back. I wanted Fox to sound mysterious and European, even though he's named after Ethan Hunt of Mission Impossible. I just thought it would be cool because then it would be easy to differentiate. Captain Croc, I wanted to be an eccentric explorer, and Wizard, I wanted to be someone that sounded old and wise. And he put so many sound effects into it. You feel like you're immersed in the character scenes, and I just loved what he did. He even did it for me because there's a part where it says Z. He even did it for a part for me that is in Z because of the Canadian way of saying it. Although Z, the way that Z sounds is a key component to the end of the story, and it falls flat when you use the word Z. But I still, from my Canadian heart, had to do that. He also had to make a teacher's edition where it had an introduction with the letters for each component, each alphabets pair segment, so that if a teacher wanted to just teach C and D, she could play the C and D audiobook to go with the PDF printout. And the final component of the Bucks program was that I was able to take this book, heaven help me now if I remember where I did it or how I did it, but it is also uploaded into Kindle. And someone just read it the other day, which made my heart happy. That's one more person that will help save cursive. And that is another way, because if you already have Kindle, then it would be free to you, and that would be a free way to uh, be able to read it. And so I really did my best to help the homeschool mom or any teacher educator that was challenged financially, because for the price of the PDF, you could teach your children cursive. So there you have it. You have my story of the writing portion and the reading portion. Coming up in the next two episodes, like I said, I am going to go through my relationship with organized religion. There's a big story there. And I also, in episode 4, we're going to go into my puzzle book and the rewrite with the connectors and how I published my book by myself in 30 days. And very proud of that. So, my darlings, we have come to the end of the episode. The first artist, well, he missed the mark, but the second, well, she saw something in me and in my words even before I did. She sketched more than a character. She unlocked this whole vision, and she helped me build this cursive crew and my Crack the Cursive Code world. And somewhere between a pompadour, a pirate ship, and a left-handed rewrite, I stopped outsourcing belief and I borrowed hers until mine kicked in. So, if this episode says anything, it's this: the right people get it, and when they do, let them. You got a question that you've been circling or a brain fart that's messing with your clarity? Throw it under hashtag HeyJax on Reddit, and it might crack open my next episode. Visit crackthecursivecode.com, where I guarantee you will have the most fun learning cursive, as well as my loser, shift, and forthwith merch is there. And love the show? Leave a 5-star review. It helps more than you know. Until then, write messy, dream loud. Jax out.